Hi, welcome to the Oliver Fetter YouTube channel. Today I'm working on my 1.9 liter ALH TDI turbo diesel engine block, and specifically I want to wrap up the bottom cavity of this motor because it's no good to have half your engine open to ambient air and have dust be getting in there and all kinds of things. So today I need to finish my oil pump install, get my front and rear main seals on with their covers, and then get the oil pan installed if I can. And that will finish the bottom half of the engine, and I can quit worrying about the fact that this is open to the elements in my garage. So at the oil pump, I currently have it mostly installed. I actually kind of struggled to do this, which is funny, because the mounting bolts that hold it in, those three, this back one didn't have, well, none of them had washers when I took them out. Somehow. I have no idea how. I didn't lose the washers. I'm really good about keeping hardware together. So when I put them back in, though, I realized this back one wasn't actually all the way down on the pump. It was bottoming out in the bottom of the hole. And so I actually added washers to them to make sure they're clamping the pump to the block and not just bottoming out in their holes. Super important. That's kind of a weird quirk, but if you have yours apart, I would be very careful when assembling just to check that you're actually getting a good clamp between the two and that it's not just the fact that the bolt is bottomed out. Anyways, so I checked the internals of this oil pump. There's gears in there. You can check the clearance. The clearance is good with a feeler gauge, so there's no reason to replace this much. This is just a hunk of metal with some gears floating in oil. It's fine. So the parts I do want to replace are not on it yet. I'm going to reuse the sprocket because that seems fine, but I want to replace the chain because chains are kind of always a weak link, pun not intended. And the other thing that seems really weak to me is the plastic tensioner that gives the chain tension. It has some wear marks in it, and it looks old and brittle and kind of scratched. So fresh one of those, fresh chain, be able to button up the oil pump side of it, which lets me then close the rest of the cavity and kind of move on. It's currently like pretty cold out. I want to say it's like 30 degrees or so. So hopefully the sealant dries. I think so long as, this engine doesn't return to service soon, which it won't. It's going to be on this stand for a while. That'll give that sealant ample time to dry, even though it's currently freezing temps. No excuses. Get your project going. Okay, so without more ado, we're going to get the chain on here. We're going to get the tensioner on. We're going to put stuff together and get this rolling. Off we go. Here's what my old tensioner looked like. You can see it's like brittle plastic, and even in this face here, there's like some scratches and kind of deep wear grooves, so I didn't really like that. This is a brand new tensioner for comparison. No scratches, no weird grooves, much brighter color in general, which obviously means it's not quite as old. Feel a lot better about putting this back in the motor. Here we have old chain versus new chain. Honestly, I can't really find a huge difference between the two. You could probably measure their length somehow and discern that the old one is probably slightly longer and slightly stretched, but I just think it's prudent to use a new one. So the way I'm going to approach this, I'm going to get this sprocket good and clean. It has one flat edge, which I'm currently holding upwards, that'll match to a flat edge on the pump itself. Take this center pump bolt out. And then what I want to do, this is going to be precarious. What I want to do is install the pump chain kind of with this at the same time. So tensioner can be last, that's easy. But I want to put that on there first and kind of get it around both places it needs to go. Let's see, I might have botched. Because yeah, you kind of have to slip it around your crankshaft first. And this is kind of tough. Let's see. There it is. That stuff is in. Honestly, this is probably a great bolt to put some Loctite on. I don't think it has any from the factory though, to be fair. It's just really tight. But you really don't want that to come off. And then your tensioner, kind of get this part in the block zone. It's probably not going to be that easy. Or maybe you just want to get it a little bit started. There we go. So I'm kind of threading mine in. I'm going to thread it in some more. Kind of thread it in until you start getting close to the chain, I think. I think. And the tensioner is just 10 mil. And I know I didn't torque this. We're going to torque everything in just a second. There you go. But that's what it looks like when it's all installed. Nice and tight. And on second thought, I actually am going to throw some Loctite in here. From what I can tell, this bolt should be 18 foot-pounds. And this bolt should be 11. Okay, healthy dab of blue Loctite, just for peace of mind. If this comes off, this sprocket comes off, you're totally screwed. And it should be a T45 Torx. Yes, my method of counterholding this, I don't even know if it's really going to spin. It probably will, because it's at a mechanical, well, it's actually at a disadvantage with the way the chain is done. Anyways, I'm going to go to tighten this. It's going to try to move, maybe. Might not even. Okay, you just don't even need to counterhold it. There you go. Don't need to. Never mind. But you could counterhold it with a wrench if you needed to. So that, right there, that was 18 foot-pounds. 25 Newton meters is the spec. And this run right here is 11. There you go. All right, so now we're fully torqued and together. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. So in terms of main seals, which is the next step, you can't really put your oil pan on until you get your main seals on because your main seals have half of the oil pan bolts on them. Your, what is this? Front main seal, this guy, timing chain side, right? Front main seal is replaceable. I painted over this, so it's a little confusing, but there's the seal. There's my replacement seal. So I'm going to push this one out and push this one in, and that'll be that. And your rear main seal comes as this whole thing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use this one, but it's a little funky looking, I'm not going to lie. It's got like this almost like paper outer edge, and it's kind of rubbery. I don't know, it just looks weird, but the kind of the downside of a cold day like today is that all the steels, excuse me. Well, kind of. All the seals are pretty much steels. They're very stiff, and so you got to be careful when you're putting them on because it'd be easy to damage them when they're brittle like this. Kind of a quick note on this too. So this is it with the seal pressed out. There's actually a pretty gnarly lip at the front here of it. Like, it's like sharp. I pushed the seal that way when I took it out. So I don't know if it's corroded or just old or, you know, for whatever reason there's a lip here. If you drive a new seal over this sharp edge, you could probably ruin it. So I'm going to probably put mine in from the backside where there isn't a sharp lip, or get a file and take the time to clean this lip off carefully without damaging the rest of the surface before putting a seal in the front like usual. Whatever's easier. So I just took that edge off. You can probably see that shiny spot right here all the way around. I just took a file and got rid of that extra edge so it doesn't ruin my new seal. That is all. This is with the new seal installed. I just went to flush with this face, and this is what I used to install it. This is a seal driver kit. Basically comes with like a million different size circular pieces of metal and a handle. And so this one was just a little bit smaller than the seal. Lets you press it in there real nice. First stop today on sealing up this oil cavity is going to be putting the front main seal, lower oil pump cover on. And I don't have a gasket for this. There honestly might be one, but I'm just gonna cover this whole surface in a reasonable amount of RTV. You don't gotta go nuts. If you put too much on, it's just gonna squirt out and touch things it shouldn't. What you need to do is probably just put a bead on the surface, and then I'm gonna take my finger and kind of smooth everything over. And before I do that, just because I got some paint on certain surfaces, I'm gonna go ahead and clean that paint off real quick while it's still easily accessible. here's how I like to apply gasket maker. I'm gonna be using the Right Stuff 90-minute gasket maker, and I think it's always prudent just to not crazy, but just clean your surfaces one more time. You know, this part I'm holding, I already cleaned off with a Scotch-Brite pad, so it's pretty clean, but you know, just in the case something happened. And this surface, we're gonna get in here and do our best to clean. And you're just removing any last oils that might have remained, that should not remain, so that this gasket maker actually has a good chance to set up and be strong. And we're gonna be doing the rest of the oil pan anyways, so it doesn't really hurt to be doing this. This oil is tougher though. That's that assembly lube, and assembly lube is some thick stuff for sure. Okay, so like right there, that's probably as much as you need. And you can see it's not like I didn't gob it on there. And now what I like to do is even it out with my finger, so you get a nice seal. This part up here that I'm putting it on, you probably don't need to. That's kind of silly, but I'm just gonna do it anyways, because I like the idea that two surfaces are sealed together. Okay, good thing my finger is now covered in it. And these two holes I'm at these two pins, so all we really got to do is be careful about the seal itself. The other thing that helps this is this is Sil Glide, which is basically my favorite assembly grease kind of thing. And if you grease up what you're about to try to push the seal over, there's a much better chance that you won't damage that seal. Not to mention that this part is what we're going to seat the gear on eventually, so it's fine if it has some grease too. It's kind of funny doing it upside down though. I need to find the hardware for this. It looks like we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, which I think I have right here. Because we're using gasket maker, at least to get started here, I'm not gonna torque these just yet. I'm gonna set an hour timer. And what you're supposed to initially do is just get them finger tight so that, like right here, it starts pushing out of the seam just a little bit. That's perfect. And then in 1 hour, I'll come back and actually torque these, and it looks like 11 foot-pounds is a good number for them. And I would assume the rear is the same way. 11 foot-pounds. A nice little bead just poking out all the way around, and that's what you want. You want it to just squeeze a little bit out. You're not looking for like this huge glob to come out of the seam. That's excessive, especially because these are machine parts. They're gonna fit up, you know, just fine anyways. And because I know I'm coming back and putting the oil pan on this part, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of wipe this shit off. So this is the new rear main seal. I just have that plastic piece in the middle. As you can see, it actually has a ring already. Like this should just seal on the back of the block because it's rubber. I may just throw a quick bead of silicone on this too for shits and giggles. The quality of this part seems a little dubious to me. I don't really think it's going to make it leak necessarily, but I'm just going to be cautious while installing it. And there's not a whole lot to see. I got this set up so you can look at the back of the motor kind of. And we're going around that, which I got a little bit of paint on, so I need to clean this off too. Prepped and ready to go. I put a little bit of RTV on the back of this. Now it does come with this plastic plate, which I think is mostly just for shipping, but I might try to use it to install. As you can see, the lip on this one actually rolls, well, it kind of like hooks inwards. So as you're trying to press it on, you're actually pressing on the narrow side of it, which is kind of why I was thinking I might try to use this to help ease it on there. And if I was smart, which I'm not, I would probably go ahead and take this off the stand altogether. Oh wow, that worked well. Okay, so if you're having trouble getting it on, use the plastic thing it comes with. It slid on beautifully using that just now. Okay, that looks good. So now I just need to get a couple bolts squeaked in here and tightened, and then we now will have a good base of which to put the oil pan on, which is awesome. Alrighty, all right, so we now have front and rear main seals installed, and they're doing their thing. Now, I don't think there's any reason we can't just continue and put the oil pan on too. I don't see any reason like waiting for that to dry necessarily, because we're snug but not quite tight, and the oil pan will be snug and then not quite tight, but it'll be tight after this is tight. So long story short, I think it's fine to go ahead and proceed. So first step here to proceeding is getting this really clean. Basically every step of engine assembly is just to get it really clean before you proceed to the next step. There we go. And I am getting dirt off. I mean, not everything. Like there's some schmutz over here that's not coming off because it's like surface rust kind of. And you know, now that we're mostly assembled, there's no need to be throwing Brillo pads in places they shouldn't be, or like grinding at it for any reason. That's just gonna like knock dirt and debris into your newly assembled engine. Right now I'm just looking to clean off oil that's been dripping everywhere while I've been assembling it, and any kind of surface dust that we may have picked up. And the gasket maker will do the rest. And I do actually have a paper gasket for this, so my thought here is that I'm going to go ahead, now that we're clean, I would almost use the paper on its own, other than it's not gonna seal at these kind of corners anyways. So two ways of doing it. You could just glue it, which is actually like a pretty good option and might be the way to go. Just go ahead and glue the whole thing, because that's what they do at the factory anyways. Or kind of option two is you can use the paper gasket and glue it, which honestly is kind of even better. You get more crush thickness to make up for irregularities. So this is my paper gasket I have, and actually it's kind of nice. It's kind of thick. It's almost like cardboardy. I wouldn't say it's rubber though. It's definitely still paper. And I'm just laying it on here, and it's a good idea to just like lay things down and check that the holes line up half decently. The one area that seems to be kind of hitting on right now is like right in this corner, and this corner doesn't really do a whole lot, so I'm probably gonna trim just a teeny bit out of it so that it sits nicely. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cover both sides of this in RTV. Same thing, kind of a thin layer, and then I'm gonna put it on and we're gonna seal this baby up. And maybe the best compromise, and well, that's a tangent. A real quick non-tangent is that if you were going to use a gasket and you didn't want to cover everything in RTV, you only need to put it at the seams. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is where you'd put dabs of RTV. If you do want to use it, I'm going to go ape and put it on both sides of everything, which is a little sus. And I just thought of this, which I think might be the best solution of all, which is put a full side's worth of RTV on the block side and then leave it a paper gasket on the other side, so that if you do need to take your oil pan off, it'll just come off. However, I just put RTV on the oil pan side, so we're going full send and putting RTV on both sides. It's also worth saying you should start with the block side because it's easier to hold the gasket if you get one side of it messy and then lay it down and then do the other side. So I'm kind of chuffing this right now, but the net result will be the same, which is a gasket with RTV on both sides. And now the moment I've been waiting for a long time. Good and clean. Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum, ba-dum. Yeah, we're putting it together. Okay, it's sliding a bit, but that's okay. It's nice to have things going together because we're getting to the point where it's easy to lose things. And we'll get a couple screws in this bad boy. And the key to kind of getting it aligned is to take your time, but also I'm going to start with like these two end ones look problematic, and kind of I'm going to get the corners and just kind of work them all in. Before I tighten any of them fully, I'm just going to get them in a few threads, and when they're all in a few threads, then I'll tighten them. All right. And so here we are. Oil pan is on, covers are on, oil pump is together and tight and ready to go. The bottom end on this block is done, which is very exciting, and it looks pretty, and I'm very stoked. Now all I gotta do is in an hour, I need to come back and tighten everything to 11 foot-pounds. Easy. Thank you so much for watching. I'll keep this ALH build rocking on, and we'll see you for the next one. Appreciate you.